No beer today. I asked the landlady for credit and she answered me nay. A custom like yours I can have every day. So there's no beer. I spent everything I had in Beer House 53. But no matter, I had a Beer House 43 in Perotska Street. But I had a very, very good night, I have to say. A really excellent night. Yeah, that was the last food review I did. I have to say it was I really enjoyed the traditional Bulgarian restaurant. At one stage we were going to stand up and go out for a fag and we left down an ashtray. And I just said, oh Jesus, the gift that keeps on giving. This is fucking, this was a great addition to the experience, that we didn't have to get up and go and stand outside like fucking idiots to smoke a fag. We could enjoy a cigarette after the dinner and not sort of break the ambience by having to get up and go outside for a cigarette and back in again and everything else. But the whole Bulgarian experience was very, very enjoyable. And then I sent a few more people around there last night. I said, Beer House 43 on Perotska Street. I said I was only around there last night. And it was a fucking great experience. I have to say the food was beautiful. The ambience was great. There was no whistles and bells. It was like a very much like an Irish bar, like a traditional Irish bar. You know, that easy going, no whistles, no bells, just good crack and good fun. And a good ambience, there was no need for the bullshit, for the whistles and bells. So I really enjoyed it. And yeah, I sent a few people around there then last night. I suggested that it was a great place to have, a great place to go for dinner. Nice food and a very reasonable prices. So I asked him this morning, how'd you get on? And he says, oh, it was lovely, but he said the timing was all off. They brought the chips out first and then they brought the bread out. And then I got my meal and then the lady was with me and the couple that was with me, they didn't get their meals for another 15 minutes and all the rest. But he was sort of saying that they need to change. And I was saying, yeah, but this is the Bulgarian experience. If you want your whole rind and everything else, you have to go for the American experience. You have to go to the American restaurants. I said, which is a completely different experience. And they will match or exceed your expectations. And then you condition it. But the point I'm trying to make is, if you go around for a traditional Bulgarian restaurant, for a traditional Bulgarian experience, then don't try and make it something different. Try and make it something like an American experience or a French experience. Do you know what I'm saying? You're going for a Bulgarian experience and then you try to impose your expectations on it and then you condition them, like you try to make it, you try to change it, and you might use classical conditioning in that, like you give a big tip if they conform to your expectations. Do you know what I'm saying? And there's no tipping culture in Bulgaria, but the West are bringing this in as a way of imposing their will on the place. In making, this is to come in and use tips as classical conditioning in order to determine the nature of change and make it the Bulgarian restaurant like something like that they want it to be, and not appreciating it as what it is, a traditional Bulgarian experience. But this is nature. Everybody going around imposing their will on everybody else. By various means, apparent and classical conditioning. I'll write you a bad review or leave you a big tip. This is apparent and classical conditioning. And once you become aware of this, you can be more conscious about determining the nature of change. Because nature has an insidious element. And that just doesn't apply to the restaurant. It also applies, like one of the lads moved in with a local girl here. One of the lads moved in with a local girl, and he was telling me, they split up there the other night. We were out having a smoke and a drink, and he was telling me that she made him change his shoes when he came into the house. He had to wear flip-flops in the house, and then this progressed on to he had to change his pants in the house because you wouldn't know where he'd been sitting. She said you wouldn't know where you'd been sitting. You could have been sitting any dirty bench or on any dirty place. You have to change your pants now when you come in and out of this. But it was she was progressively determined the nature of change. This is my house. my rules. You have to change your flip-flops. You have to change your pants. And then there was a series of other sanctions being imposed on him as well. And eventually the straw that broke the camel's back. He said, fuck this, I'm out here. So basically, as he said to her, you have to accept me as I am, because if you don't accept me as I am, you're just trying to make me something that I'm not, and then you won't like who you liked originally, and we'll both be miserable. But people don't tend to understand this, they don't tend to understand this. They don't seem to be conscious that they're determined in nature of change, because this is the universe. But I said, if you don't remain conscious about determining the nature of change, then you just end up miserable, because you end up being someone that you're not. You allow other people to impose their sanctions on you, impose their morality upon you, and oppress you, basically. But you have to be very conscious of this, and like he is, as he said, no, I'm happy who I am, I like who I am, and I'm fucked if you're changing me. And that's, so basically he got out of there like as fast as he could. And this has been conscious of who's determining the nature of change. But that's back again to the power struggle between the masculine and feminine energies. But as I say, it's the same with on a collective basis. Like when American people come here, and as I say, I'll write you a bad review, I'll give you a big tip. But they're determining the nature of change through operant and classical conditioning. Yeah. But then when you were looking at the nature of change, the same principles that apply to the individual apply to the collective. So I met a Nigerian fella recently, and we were talking about Africa and African imperialism, what I call African imperialism. Now, I said this to a Chinese fella about African imperialism, about Chinese imperialism in Africa, and he said to me, well, actually, that's Confucianism. And I said, Confucianism? I said, okay, well, fair enough. It's of mutual benefit for China to come in and spend all the money in Africa, buy up all the mining rights, improve the roads so they could rape the minerals and buy up all the mining rights, improve the infrastructure so they can rape it as efficiently as they can. But as the African fellow said to me, well, at least they tell us the truth. They tell us, yes, we'll pay for the improvement in the infrastructure, we'll buy you new buildings, we'll improve your ports, but if you can't pay back the money, then it's ours. You have 99 years to pay back the money, or whatever period of time to give them, and if you can't pay back the money, it's ours. Now, as the African said, at least they come in and they tell us the truth. It's not being done under the guise of anything else. They tell us the truth. We'll pay for it. If you can't pay for it, then it's ours. So it then becomes Chinese, and this is imperialism. But as the African said, well, at least you're telling us the truth. But this is sort of like instant gratification. It's sort of like, oh, thanks very much. The country is being improved, but you need to look at the trajectory of change, at what trajectory you're on. And basically, if a blind man can see that it's going to become China, basically. It's going to be under Chinese. They're going to determine the rate of inflation, they're going to determine the infrastructure, they'll own the ports, they'll own the roads with the tolls on them, they'll own, you're under the Chinese hierarchy and a Chinese hierarchical system. But there's no need to, now it's a possibility, and originally I said to myself, well, it's highly unlikely that the Africans are going to enjoy being oppressed by the Chinese, because the Chinese are control freaks. They're control freaks, and it doesn't need the Americans said to me to stop with this, please stop with the stereotyping, and I said, well, I said, when you stop fitting the stereotypes, I'll stop stereotyping you. And I said, what you see in others, look for in yourself first. You're fairly good at the stereotyping yourselves. You stereotype the Muslims, you stereotype the Irish, you stereotype everybody yourselves. But you don't like being stereotyped yourselves because you think you're individuals, but you're not. But anyway, I decided I will stop stereotyping them and look a little deeper than the surface. But the stereotyping is only a starting point, because you can't disregard culture and tradition. Even though we could argue, what's American tradition? Hot dogs. I suppose football as well. But basically, I could get into it, but they do fit the stereotype. And this is why I say so do the Chinese, but we can say that they're control freaks. But again, they do fit that stereotype because they like to control everything. But this is what the whole camera system is, and the whole data collection is. They want to be able to control everything. And I was saying to myself, well, the Africans are going to stand for this. And I was saying like they might be rise up, as Voltaire says, and try and break the chains that bind them, because they're being enslaved by their desires, much the same as the Bulgarians are here with the American imperialism. They're being enslaved by their desires. But as I said, like, there's no need to rise up and break the chains that bind you. What you need to do is look at the trajectory you're on and focus on what is within your control. So what I suggested to the Africans is focus on what is within your control. That if you try to challenge the Africans are very, very dominant, and they're very much for asserting themselves in the dominance hierarchy by whatever means necessary. Well, this is what we're witnessing now in America, isn't it? Give us a job, give us 2 jobs. We want to focus on the dominance hierarchy. But as I said before, forget the dominance hierarchy and focus on the competence hierarchy. So for my advice to the Africans in Africa is you're going to be a long time catching up on China when it comes to technology and building infrastructure and all these things. But if you were to focus on what is within your control, they are physically more superior. They're physically better. They're physically more superior. So if they were to focus on this and focus on sport and controlling the sport, so bring in their own NBA, their own football, their own basketball, their own fucking UFC, their own version of UFC. How many John Jones have we got in Africa? I reckon we have a shitload. Like, it's a massive continent, and they're physically superior. So we'd be doing a superior level of sport. This would be next level shit. If you put the money into it, and you build stadiums and your basketball arenas and all this sort of thing, plow some money into the African game. But the Africans have to focus on doing this themselves. Not allow the white man to come in and trade them again. But look at whatever money they make from the Chinese, plow it into sport, and then start streaming this, but control their own buying and selling. Basically, don't allow the white man to come in and trade them, but control the sport, and it would be completely it'd be a new level of excellence. It would set the bar. In relation to basketball. Can you imagine watching basketball from Africa with the cream of the crop? Now, not bringing in foreign players, but growing your own, and then do your own basketball, your own UFC, your own soccer, and it would be a superior level, and stream this. And then take your money from the streaming and buy shares in the Chinese companies, and then they would be the boss. And this would be an inversion of the hierarchies, a bloodless coup. Do you know what I'm saying? But there'd be absolutely no need to let it go so far that you'd have to rise up and break the chains and say, no, fuck this. Again, don't focus on the dominance hierarchy, would my advice to the Chinese or to the Africans, but focus on the competence hierarchy and focus on sport, because this is where you can excel. This is to focus on what is within your control, and then you can determine the nature of change. But not let it go so far that you find yourself in a fucking hole and be completely oppressed by the Chinese. And them owning your ports, owning your roads, owning your fucking buildings, owning everything. It might be Africa, but it might as well be China. But as I say, focus on what is within your control, and then buy the shares in the Chinese companies. And then who's the boss? Well, if you spend enough money, which you will be able to make enough money from the streaming, from the sport and streaming the sport, then you'll be able to buy shares in the Chinese companies. And then it'll be a case of who's the boss? I'm the fucking daddy. I'm the fucking boss. But as I say, you have you sort of have to accept a certain level. For example, don't wish for things to be different, wish them to be as they are. Like, for example, me, but I'm still, like, I could say I'm a slave, but I'm focused on what is within my control, and I'm not looking for anybody to promote me, support me, fucking give me a job, give me 2 jobs. No, stick your jobs up your fucking arse. I'll do my own hierarchical systems. And I am encouraging everybody else to do the same. Create our own hierarchical systems in opposition to the existing ones. But don't look to assert yourself on their hierarchical system at all. Let them stick it up their hole. Good morning.